What's up, everybody? We're back.
Yeah! Hey, welcome back to the Metal Edge Journey. Hey, so we've made it back around to the front of all these lists and everything that we're doing. We're back to the top 20 rock album list. We've arrived at I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see how we all feel about this record here. This is one that I felt like was pretty interesting when I saw it on the list, and I was kind of hoping, I was waiting to get here. So this is David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, and the Spiders from Mars. This is number title. 12. Yep. This is number 12 on the top 20 rock albums of all time. We'll do
that almost messed up with our monetization there.
Yeah. David Bowie, born David Robert Jones on January 8th, 1947 in London, England, was a transformative figure in music, fashion, and pop culture. He rose to fame in the late 1960s with his single Space Oddity and became a global icon in the 1970s through his flamboyant alter ego Ziggy Stardust, blending rock, glam, and theatricality. Over his 5-decade career, Bowie continually reinvented himself, exploring genres like soul, funk, electronic, and experimental music with landmark albums such as Hunky Dory, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, and Low. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996 and has sold over 100 million records worldwide. Beyond music, he acted in films like fan favorite Labyrinth, and influenced countless artists with his innovative style and fearless creativity. Bowie passed away on January 10th, 2016, leaving a legacy as one of the most influential and visionary artists of the 20th century.
Has it been that long?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, released in 1972, is the 5th studio album from David Bowie. The album features Bowie's backing band, the Spiders from Mars, featuring Mick Ronson on guitars, Trevor Bolder on bass, and Mick Woodmansey on drums. Described as a loose concept album and rock opera, Ziggy Stardust focuses on Bowie's titular alter ego, Ziggy Stardust, a fictional, androgynous, and bisexual rock star who was sent to Earth as a savior before an impending apocalyptic disaster. Say that 3 times fast. In the story, Ziggy wins the hearts of fans, but suffers a fall from grace after succumbing to his own ego. In 2017, this album was selected for preservation in the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress, being deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So that's high praise.
I'll go first here. I've been kind of trolling the last couple of days on this record, and I'm not gonna do Mr. Bowie here any more disservice. This record is absolutely a grower and not a shower, in my opinion.
Monetization, I like it.
Yeah, it definitely took a little bit of time for me to really get into the right mindset. And then honestly, it has nothing to do with the album. It has to do with more of me and the type of music I normally listen to. Typically it's more of aggressive and depressing nature, is what I tend to like. And on the surface, this record is opposite of that. As with a lot of classic rock albums, it's a lot of major chords and a lot of just kind of like seemingly happy-go-lucky exterior. But I think the more you listen to it, and you really do have to really pay attention on this record, in my opinion, like you cannot, at least for me, I could not treat this as background music because then it just kind of, like, I didn't appreciate it. And when I really just sat there and like, okay, I'm going to really force myself. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to really try to take it in. I really began to appreciate this record more and more as the last few days have gone on. And I know my score might not reflect like a super, super high score. I will tell you, maybe like if we would have reviewed this album like 3 or 4 days ago, it would have probably been like 1 or 2 full points lower than what I ended up at. So I definitely came around on this record and I've learned to appreciate it. It is it is more than meets the eye, I think, at least for me.
Jonah, what you got?
I'm right there with you, Dave. I had a very similar experience. The first few times I tried to listen to the album, it was as background music while I was doing other things, whether at work or at home. And I just was not vibing with it at all. Obviously, there's a few songs in here that are maybe considered hits that I was familiar with, and I like those songs, generally speaking. But some of the deeper cuts, I was like, not really feeling. But exact same experience. Once I actually sat down and listened to it more deliberately, then I was like, okay, I get it now. And it did click for me. And same thing, maybe 3 or 4 days ago, my score would have been significantly lower. But I think my score is going to be more based on my personal taste, but also recognizing just how good it really is. Standouts for me would be just the overall vibe of the album. It's kind of a concept album. It's telling a story. Once I figured out what that was, I got pretty into it. And man, one thing I was surprised about is some of the production. All the instruments come in through super clear. The bass sounds really good on this album, so that's getting bonus points for me.
Bix level.
Yeah, the Bix levels are solid. But yeah, no, overall I had a really good time with the album, and I have huge respect for David Bowie as an artist. Like Dave said, at first glance, this album may appear something different. It's a little artsy, maybe, high concept. So, if you're not in the right mindset, I can see why you would not enjoy this album, because I didn't at first also. But I came around on it, and I think it's really solid, and I really enjoy it.
Go ahead, Fossil.
Similar vibes here. Me,
Dude, could you mute that after like the fourth throat clearing?
the last time I tried to mute, it never came back on. So if we want to experiment, I can absolutely.
I mean, that's probably better for everybody if that actually happens.
I was sick last week, and I just got stuff that I just need to hawk up sometimes. But anyway,
we're trying to keep our monetization. Don't talk about what's stuck in there. All right.
Okay. So usually I start off listening as background music while I'm doing other things. But going into this, I was not a big Bowie fan. I've never been a big Bowie fan. Normally, just based on the hits, when I hear them, I'm just like, yeah, this is just not my thing. So I was very shocked when around the fourth or fifth time through this album, starting with 5 years, I was like, this is actually pretty good. And that song kind of just started it. And where I thought I was just going to have maybe one or two songs on here, as I progressed, I was like, no, this song's good too. And then I just kind of started listening to each track. And then today, I listened to this album about 5 times. And full disclosure, before we came on, I was absolutely willing to go another week listening to this album if we didn't want to do this review today, because I do honestly feel like this song or this album is only going to get a higher score later down the road for me.
I agree.
And again, I never really got into Bowie. I never was a fan of Bowie. I never tried to listen to Bowie. And look, I'll be the first one to say I'm a dummy. This is absolutely it's eye-opening for me.
Do you think I know we don't have this as a category for these sets of playlists, but would you consider listening to more David Bowie because of this record?
Oh yes, I absolutely am going to. I like I said, I had a preconceived notion based on a few of the songs that I've heard and just David Bowie in general, and I just was just like, I don't think I'm going to like it. So I just never tried it.
That might be some of his later material, more recent
absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Look,
and he's I mean, just going through the history there, but I don't think this is indicative of his entire catalog. It seems like he's kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Correct. He is, and even in this album, he's all over the place. I hear 5 or 6 different bands in this album. Some at this time, some before this time, some after this time. Like you can hear the influences, whether or not he's taking from other people or people took from him, or just a similar vibe in different ways. But I mean, there's all kinds of different music on this album, and like I'm shocked at how much I enjoyed this album. Like again, I could have spent another week on this album.
Nice. Yeah, it's weird. So, we do this group chat. We have the show obviously every week, but we have a group chat where, I think you could kind of tell the general feeling on some of these records based on how much someone's texting about it or not texting about it. And like, it was pretty quiet. It's been a pretty quiet week in terms of like just overall feelings on this record, which is usually more of a negative thing. It's more like, because it's not like super negative. Like if it's super negative, we'll share that. But if everybody's really vibing on the record too, like we'll usually share that. So this is usually like indicative of this album getting like a 5 or something.
Yeah, somewhere in the 5 or 6 range.
5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually pretty indicative. So I'm surprised to hear you guys be this complimentary of the record, because I thought I was going to be the only one. I love this record.
Wow.
I had such a good time listening to this. I've probably listened to this record more than the last 4 that we've done. And I had almost say combined, honestly, in certain cases. Dream Theater. But
had to.
Yeah, I know, dude. I just had to. Dave's got to catch strays. Man, what a great album. To Jason's point, so many different genres and styles of music going on here. And it was giving me like at moments. So like 5 years was giving me some serious like Billy Joel vibes, which like Billy Joel is somebody that I love, and it's really something that kind of came to me a lot later in life. Like really in the last like 3 or 4 years, I've become like a very big Billy Joel fan. And it's hard. It's like it's hard to discover like artists that now become like some of your favorite artists, in your late 30s and early 40s. So it was giving me some vibes there, and that really kind of like sucked me in into the rest of the record. And from top to bottom, I think this record is awesome. It's a good, like Dave sent a message. So there was some chatter. Dave sent a message in the other day. He's like, "Oh, this record's making me go to sleep."
That was very early on, to be fair.
Yeah. And so then I start thinking like, this is just like this is like I started to ask myself, what does Dave listen to, like when he gets in the car after a long day at work? Like, does he just get in there and he's like, man, what a hard day, time to put on some Death, and kind of unwind? Or is there some sort of like soft, easy listening? So Dave, what is it?
I don't do anything easy listening whatsoever.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I thought, right? And so that's like, going back to something Jonas said about the vibe of this record. The vibe on this record is just it's just a chill record. It's telling a story, but the whole thing is just kind of laid back. Nothing is super aggressive in it. And this is something that, like, for me, like after a hard day, like, man, I could listen to this all day. You get finished at a heavy metal concert and you need something to kind of jam to on the way home. Here we go, putting on some Ziggy Stardust, right? So this is a record that it will be in my regular rotation going forward. The whole record. I don't think there is a single skipper on this record. Personally, I love this record. MVP for me. I mean, we can go around the horn, or we can just see if it's a sweep here, but it's Bowie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no need to discuss that.
And that's not a I'm not trying to besmirch the rest of the band.
No, he's the only one with songwriting credits too.
Yeah, but
and he co-produced the record.
Yeah.
It's clear this is his vision.
Yeah, for sure. But I wanted to just point out all the other gentlemen, everyone else who's playing on the record is doing a great job. Like
Shout out to the bass player Trevor Boulder.
Yeah. But
the
yes, it's Bowie.
Named Mick. Cool. So let's get into the album title and the album art. I'll go first here. Look, man, I like the title. It's wacky. It's long. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. I love like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. You know, like I love like when you have like the name of the guy and then like that your backing band has a separate name. Like I feel like we've lost that. Like I mean, in reality, it's like Corey Taylor and Slipknot, but you know they have to call themselves Slipknot. But it's like we just lost that. So it's Spiders from Mars, super cool little side name. So for the album title, I'm gonna give it an 8. I like it. For the album art, I'm not sure what's going on the album art. Like
It's just him
it's just him chilling and
on the side of
Yeah,
the street.
it looks like a guy waiting to go into a gig, and he's just in the back, like smoking a cigarette or something.
yeah, okay, but like give me like Ziggy Stardust dropping down from a
outer space
spaceship or something, bro.
Yeah.
Give me the naked chick with the boobs on the Crimson Glory album cover.
Yeah.
I
will
will
say
I'm
that-
going to go 2.3 for mine.
Wow.
Okay. That's
Look, I'll go. Look, title. I gave it a 7.5. It is a mouthful, but it is unique. Cover. I gave it a 7 out of 10. And I think it's mostly because it feels straight out of the 70s. Like this. It does feel like that era where they took still photos and then colored them. You know, it does look like in that time frame. So for me, knowing the album, I think it fits.
Yeah. So I ended up giving the title a 10. I love this title. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. It sounds like a comic book to me. And by that same token, the album art, while not as good, I gave it an 8. It almost has like a comic book vibe, and I think that totally fits like the subject matter and like the story and the concept and everything. So I really dig the title, and I think the album art's really good too.
I'm right around where y'all are. I think I'm a little closer to I'm pretty much right around. Album art, I gave it a 6. I think it's fine. You know, it's good. But I mean, I don't think to Josh's point, knowing that it's a loose kind of concept record and it's based around the character Ziggy Stardust, it would have been cool had they gone all in on that, on the kind of, you know, alien androgynous character.
Just give me his character from Labyrinth and just put his face on the front with the hair and everything.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, this predates that by about like 15 years, I think. But but no, I'm right there with you. But album title, I gave it an 8. I think the album title is great. I agree with you, Josh. I do miss like the the band and the somethings, right? I miss all that. I don't know.
Me and this guy I used to work with, Kyle Tucker, we used to joke about starting a band called Dr. Teeth and the Bloody Gums.
It's pretty good.
I was like, dude, that's such a good such a good band name.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the album title is great.
Cool. Let's go into your top tracks.
For me, let's see. So my top tracks are going to be a little bit lame because a couple of them are songs that I was familiar with before. But it is what it is. My number 3 is Suffragette City. I think that's a great upbeat track. My number 2 is Ziggy Stardust. Love that song. Those two songs I kind of were already familiar going into it. My number 1 is not going to be Starman. It's going to be It Ain't Easy. I know Starman is like the super popular, like one of the big songs from this record. And it won't surprise me if y'all guys have it in your top 3. But
you went with the cover, huh?
I went with It Ain't Easy. Yeah. I just really like it.
Yeah.
I was surprised when I found out it was a cover.
I didn't even know it was a cover. So there you go.
I wanted to go look it up to see, how much of a stray it was, but I just ran out of time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
This is pretty tough for me. I do have 2 honorable mentions, Suffragette City as well as Rock and Roll Suicide. Uh, I'm not that it's lazy, but when I come across an album that's been out for a long time, something like this, I don't really go look up what were the singles, what people considered hits. That way I don't get swayed. And I'm glad I didn't because I don't have any of the hits on here. My number three, well, I say that, but I don't know if It Ain't Easy was a single, but that was my number three. Uh, Great song, very bluesy. I did not know it was a cover until I actually started doing my notes just here in the last listen. Number two, let's say, is Moon
Moon Age
Moon Age
Daydream.
Daydream. Yeah, it's got a great bass line. It reminds me of like like a George Harrison song or a Beatles song.
Mhm.
And then number one for me, and it's the song that pretty much turned the whole album for me, and that's 5 Years.
It's a very, very good
Has a
opener.
great like apocalyptic feel where it's rising and rising and rising while they're basically telling you, he's singing about we got 5 years left, and by the end it's just anguish. It's a great song.
Yeah, that would be my honorable mention.
Nice. Go ahead, John.
So my honorable mention is going to be "Hang On to Yourself." The bass line is fantastic on that song. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if one of my favorite bands took inspiration from this song because it definitely is giving like kind of like proto punk vibes a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, my number three is going to be "It Ain't Easy." Great song, super great vibe. The chorus is great. I didn't know it was a cover either. My number two is "Starman." I was familiar with the song, but I do think it's a great song and it's super catchy. It's a great written song. And then my number one is also going to be "Moon Age Dream." Now that one I was also familiar with before this, but regardless, I think it's a great song. A lot of really good guitar work, electric guitars featured heavily, and it's got a really solid bridge that I love as well.
All right. Honorable mention for me. This is a record. I got 3 honorable mentions here.
Jesus,
Man, this
I thought
album is
I was
so
bad
good.
with two.
No, dude, this album's great. I got 5 Years. I've got Moon Age Daydream, and I got Soul Love, man. Soul Love, like that song slaps, bro. Like super good vocal melody, which like you could argue like vocal wise, it's a little whatever. Like David Bowie's a little all over the place, but cool vocal melody for that one.
Chorus is good.
Yeah. Then 3 for me, Lady Stardust. Just love the vibe of that song. Kind of got like a slow chill vibe going on in that one. Number 2, Ziggy Stardust, best riff on the record.
Yeah.
Is the opening riff there for sure. And then look, whatever it's chalk or whatever you want to call it, but it's Starman. Just
Yeah.
what a jam. I mean, it was the one song I'd heard on this album before we got here, and it continued to be the best track for me for sure. So. Next part of the album or part of the show here. This is where we have to try to cut these albums down to 8 songs. We know, going back through the metal days and the best
rock
metal albums, the best metal albums and rock have 8 songs on them. So this album has 11 songs. So we got to cut 3, dude. This is one of the hardest cuts I've ever had to make for a record. I would not cut anything.
There's no skippers.
I was gonna say I'll go first because mine was the easiest cuts to do, because the 3 songs that I would cut are all right next to each other, and that is Lady Stardust, Star, and Hang On to Yourself. I think the album completely like it does sag for me right there at that point. Cause I think if I cut those 3 songs and I go straight from It Ain't Easy to Ziggy Stardust and end Ziggy Stardust, Suffragette City, and Rock and Roll Suicide, like the first 5 songs are incredibly strong, and then the last 3 songs are incredibly strong. I'm not saying that those 3 are necessarily skippers, but they are the weak point of the record for me. So I'd cut those 3, and it wasn't hard.
Dave, you almost got it right. I do agree it does sag a little bit in the middle. So I do unfortunately have Lady Stardust and Star as 2 of my cuts. But I loved Hang On to Yourself, so that's not going to get cut for me. But maybe controversial, only because I think the rest of the album is so much better, and because of the way I score my songs, my third cut's going to be Soul Love. It's not a bad song, but as far as my rankings and my scores, those are the three that got the lowest scores for me, so those are going to get cut.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't completely off, because I was like, man, these guys are not going to have these 3 songs on here. So,
Jonah, I couldn't be happier to tell you that I have Hang On to Yourself in my cuts. Okay. You're over here cutting Soul Love, dude. What are you talking about?
It's not a bad
Hang On to
song.
Yourself,
It's not a bad song.
look, that definitely has a punky vibe to it. That's the only reason why this one ended up here. Is still a great song, but just, if I have to nitpick something, it's that. I got Rock and Roll Suicide down here as well for me on cuts. Again, great song. I just don't think it's as good as a lot of what came before it. And then, look, this is a hard cut. I just chose this for the obvious reason that it was a cover, and it ain't easy. So I wanted to leave some more actual good David Bowie songs on the on the album instead of a cover. So I took it off there.
Yeah, I struggled with that, Josh. Honestly, like I tried to figure out a way to cut it, but I can't because it's in my top 3. As far as it ain't easy. I agree with you in principle on some of this. I have, as far as my cuts, Hang On to Yourself, and the other two
except Joe.
might be controversial or whatever. But look, none of these are skippers. I'm not going to skip any of these songs. It's just based on scoring, and that's it. So I'm cutting Ziggy Stardust.
What?
Oh my god, dude!
Dude, you're the stupidest person I've ever met in my life.
And I'm cutting Soul Love.
God.
I disagree with you on Rock and Roll Suicide completely.
Here I was thinking, dude, Jason finally is emerging as an intelligent person that adds value to the show, and you just moved right back into your lane, dude. Good for you.
Yep. I'm going to disagree with you on Rock and Roll Suicide. I think it's a great closing track when you take into account the theme and concept vibe of the album.
Look, I'm not arguing that it's not a great track. There's just 10 tracks ahead of it that maybe.
Like I said, none of these are skippers. This is a great album.
Yeah. Track list for me, just because a lot of my cuts came later in the record, I'm going to go with the 7 for the track listing. And especially if I'm cutting the last song, I hate that at this point. The last song should be one of the 3 strongest songs on the record, in my opinion.
I went with a 6 on track listing, simply because, like I said, it has that section in there that I do feel like is a weaker section of the album for me.
Go ahead, Jonah.
I gave the track order listing an 8.5, and the only reason it's so high for me is I feel like it is a little bit front loaded. However, if we think about where this came out, and if you look at the track listing like on Wikipedia, this was on vinyl. So you've got an A side and a B side, and the A side is super solid. So, for your average listening experience in 1972, I think that makes for a really good track listing. So I gave it an 8.5.
Yeah.
I gave it a 9 out of 10. I think this is a great track listing based on the concept album into account. I think it tells a great story, the meteoric rise, the self-indulgence, and the fall. Yeah. And I think even the songs, the way that I grade them, having 2 of the songs that I have, graded, is not as great. Being in the back half, they're still telling the story. And for me, this is probably the highest track listing I've given, and I think it deserves it.
Dude, I'm going to tell your daughter about how you cut Ziggy Stardust off this album, dummy. All right, so we're moving on here to the final category. This is where we like to give our score for the record. And just to give you some context on how we score, for a lot of folks out there, an average score would be a 7. Well, for us, it's a 5. So if this album scores anywhere between various levels between 4.9 and 0. That's various levels of we would not recommend this record. Anything 5 to 9 is various levels of we would recommend it, and anything 9 to 10 is considered to be an all-time classic. As always, trying to decide here who from low to high. Dave is volunteering his tribute to give his lowest score, which I agree. So let's go, Dave.
Yeah. I want to keep in mind that this score would have been 2 points lower had we reviewed it like 4 or 5 days ago. But I do think that this score will continue to get higher. But I'm going to just be honest with where I'm at right now. I gave this a 7.4. I think it's a very, very solid record. For me, normally, my kind of threshold for scores is it's an 8 or above if I know this album will be in my regular rotation. Like I'm gonna like actively try to listen to it, versus just kind of casual listening. Once if I just happen to be thinking about it. And I don't know that I'm there yet with this record, so 7.4 is where I'm at. And again, it's also got that section of songs that I just haven't come around on yet, so that's where I'm at.
All right, Jonah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty much falling right in the same category as Dave, and I'm going to go a little bit against my normal protocol, and I'm giving it a little bit of a boost because I think the album is such a great vibe, and I know it's only going to get better with time for me. So I ended up at a 7.5.
All right. Normally, I know Jason grades these albums harder, so he has less high scores. But for some, I don't know. I feel like he's like holding this like massive score for this record. So I want to come in. I think Jason's going to beat me here, and I have a good score for this record. Again, I love this record. I put this entire one on my like lifetime playlist. This is, going back to what we were talking about last week with Crimson Glory. This is the reason why I love doing the shows, because this is an album I never, ever, ever, ever would have listened to in a million years without kind of having this as homework, right? Basically. And dude, like, thankfully we have this show, and we get to find something that this is an album that I'm going to listen to for the rest of my life. Based on that, where I'm at right now, and knowing that this will eventually get into a higher status, I'm going with an 8.6. I think Jason beat me or tied me.
You're pretty damn spot on there, Josh. So I want to just read kind of what I wrote, just in as far as the way that the album kind of makes me think of it, and that it feels like an anthem. For every young singer who rockets to fame too fast, only to crash too soon. It is a story of the rise, the fall. While hands are reached out, some of them are helping, and some of them are there for greed. In the end, we're all left kind of grieving and wondering how it all went wrong. And you can literally put in Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Sid Vicious. The list goes on and on of anybody who could fit this persona. And like Jonah and Dave, like I rate my album, I go song by song like Jonah does, and then I kind of have a score in mind. But I do know that the score is going to be higher a week or two from now. So I came in at an 8.4.
Oh,
and I
that's
know
a big score from Jason.
Yeah. I know that it could. I know that it might go higher down the road, but I just don't know how much higher it goes. I could probably give it the 8.6.
Just do it, Jason.
So I'll go ahead and give it the 8.6.
Yeah.
Because like I said, coming into today, I was at an 8.1 score wise, as far as each individual. As far as the way I break down my songs. But I think this is a great album.
What did you score Soul Love?
I gave it a 7.2.
Stupid.
Okay. So
But the thing is, with 11 tracks, seven of them went into my favorites list.
yeah. Look, this is not going to sound like a monster score for most people, but again, for us, the way that we all have different musical tastes, this is a monster score. We're at an 8.03. So Jason's in the moment adjustment put this over an 8,
Nice.
which is a big deal. Again, just doesn't happen that often. And
How many records do we even have in the 8s?
On this rock list, funny enough, we do have a lot. But
It's been a solid rock list.
Oh yeah.
with the exception of like 3 in a row that none of us really liked.
Yeah, there were some stinkers in there, but the good ones are great.
Yes. The rock list has been on average really good. So I'll read kind of what an 8 is for us. Very good, strongly recommended. Album scoring 8 are highly enjoyable, well crafted with some impressive songs or unique elements. They might not reach the transcendent level of a 9 or 10, but they're excellent and come highly regarded for fans. And honestly, for an album that none of us, if we didn't have this show, none of us would have listened to this record on on anybody's recommendation. Would have been like, David Bowie.
Sure, buddy.
Is this metal? No? Okay. Nah, I'm good. So yeah, Josh, I think it's a good call. I mean, like the fact that we kind of create this homework for ourselves has really like done a lot for expanding my musical tastes. So yeah, Ziggy Stardust 8.03. That's not bad at all.
No, that's awesome. Well, hey, if our channel is helping you expand your musical taste, then go ahead and hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're putting out weekly metal content right now. We got metal reactions, metal reviews, metal time machines, metal brackets, and all kinds of other good stuff. And hey, in the meantime, live long and prosper.
Take it easy, everybody.
Later.
Peace.